Dude, I don't even get it. Warlocks have everything. This literally even has lightning on it. I don't understand how they can keep getting away with this. This is absurd. I don't understand. How do they keep getting away with it? It literally has lightning. Look at this. Unbelievable. These Warlock players. All right. Okay, so today a decent amount of news has broke. I think, okay, Warlock tier aside, Blizzard made a very interesting blue post that basically stated that they are done with the iterative process on class talent trees, and now they are focusing on bug fixes and getting everything ready for launch. How are you feeling about this one?
I think a close reading of this one is important because they're not like done with design iteration. They said they're transitioning away from spending the majority of our time on design iteration, and we're now primarily focused on fixing bugs and tuning the game. So that's two different qualifiers, both of which leave the door open to hopefully some design iteration on a few trees, because there are a few trees that I think still need at least some medium talent moving aroundness in them. But
Guardian Druid and Prot Paladin, I think, are the ones that I've heard the most outcry on.
Yeah, some of the, like, Prot Paladin, a lot of the Prot Paladin is just that, like, half of the buttons don't work on the tree, which I think falls into the category of stuff they're focusing on now, of fixing bugs and tuning the game. But yeah, I would still, like, I think that fixing bugs, tuning the game, balancing talent choices against each other, tuning the throughput of each class, that is a lot of the stuff that people are worried won't happen falls under that category, right? So, like, switching focus to that, I think is a fine thing to do. And it, I think I do really think most talent trees are in a pretty good place right now. Like, most of the ones I've looked at, they've gotten a pass or two that have changed them. Guardian Druid, yeah, there's a couple where it's like, I'd be a little bit unhappy if this was my main spec, and I'd feel like I wanted a little bit more, but I don't know. I feel like this is the kind of thing where they could spend a year doing talent iteration, and there would still be specs that would feel that way about it.
That's probably pretty fair. We talked about it a little bit ago, and in regards to, is the expansion ready? And we kept harping on things such as, like, oh, the leveling zone feels pretty fluid. The dungeons have felt, by and large, pretty much okay. I've tested all of them fairly extensively. They've all felt pretty good. Obviously, M+ and raid testing hasn't happened yet. Hold on, I wish I had the document for this, but we know that raid testing is happening at least next week as of time of recording this. And I don't really expect M+ or the raid to really be of a problem. Are the classes realistically ready for expansion launch? That's kind of the only thing that I've been like, okay, wait a second. I don't know if these classes are even going to be ready, because, like you said, for a while there, it felt like half the classes were still hoping for some level of design iteration.
Yeah, I think that the amount of classes that are, like, really hurting for design overhauls of talent trees is pretty low. I don't know. I think the talent trees, at worst, there's a few that it's like that need, like, medium work.
Okay.
Are the classes going to be right? Like, obviously, if they launch it today, no, most talent trees have tremendous amounts of bugs in them still.
Yes.
But, like, is a month enough time to fix that? I have no idea. I feel like most people who are speculating on that have no idea. If, like, a bunch of people who play a lot of World of Warcraft are speculating on how much dev time it takes to remove a certain amount of bugs, and that's not my area of expertise.
No clue. Yeah, I do worry though, because so how this generally works down is, like, there is a string lock on WoW, and this normally happens like a week or two before pre-patch launches, to where there's no, like, Blizzard is not able to update tooltips on spells, and so everything has to be completely finalized in regards of mechanical functionality on how the string text is going to read. And so that's normally when Blizzard is, like, locked up. All right, this is how the class is going to be. There's going to be no more changes. Then at that point, obviously, they can do hot fixes for, like, bug tunings and passes like that. I kind of expect there to still be some pretty heavy, like, damage tuning and bug fixing even coming into pre-patch. Just like, okay, the third day of pre-patch, I suspect that there's going to be a bunch of stuff that's, like, randomly bugged, and at least from the class POV, and it's going to probably have to get fixed. But that's just the nature of the beast. I think that it's, assuming that they can get all the classes in an okay spot, it's looking okay. Maybe.
I mean, I don't think they will launch the game with, like, multiple classes having huge But like, I feel like that would be a really bad look. Like that's the kind of thing that like launching the game in a state where it's like, oh, nobody's going to play Preservation of Ochre in World Top 100 because of the range issue or something like that. That's plausible to me. But launching the game in a state where it's like, everybody who plays Windwalker Monk has a talent that they can click on that like. Well, I guess Windwalker Monk's a bad example because they actually do that with that spec. But any of the other specs, having a button you can just have on your talent tree that like just doesn't do what it says on it. I feel like that's something that would be like not. I don't think they would be comfortable releasing the game like that. If they did, it would be a case of like fixed in the first couple weeks type thing.
It's weird because there has still been like a decent amount of negative feedback coming from like primarily priests and paladins in my experience, and then like Guardian Druid players. But they are at least getting closer. It's very unfortunate that they put this out for those people who are playing this class. These classes. I feel like that's maybe a little bit of a miss, but I don't know. Maybe you're right in the sense of if they did give them a year, there would still be people who felt like this almost regardless.
Yeah, and again, like I still do hope that like I hope the Guardian Druid gets another change here, and this doesn't say they're not going to, right? It's they're talking about what they're going to spend the majority of their time on,
sure,
what they're going to be primarily focused on, right? That doesn't mean no Guardian Druid changes.
All right, let's move on to some other stuff. Creation Catalyst got a new UI update this week, making it look more Dragonflight themed, as you see here. It's looking a bit more modern. We haven't seen tier sets at all. Tier set bonuses. Now we are finally starting to see some of the sets available on the beta. I think we
have almost all of the art previews, yeah.
Yeah, all the art previews have come out. You can actually go and see those on the beta as well. But as for the sets themselves, we don't know how they're going to work. Something that's a super interesting topic is how are tier sets going to function, and is Blizzard going to design tier sets that require mandatory talents to be put into them to be functional? I think that this is something that we haven't seen for a while, and because like you have to get basically all of your builders, your spenders, everything in your talent tree. And so the assumption here is, at least for me, is that there are some talents or like some tier sets, a lot of tier sets probably, that you're going to have to talent into to be able to even use your tier set.
Yeah, there's some like, there's some talent trees where it's like, oh, technically I don't have to take this ability, I could path around it, and then like half of the talents at the bottom tree just directly refer to it. And it's just like, yeah, okay, I mean, you actually basically do have to take that talent, right? It's like, it's technically optional, but it's in practice, it's mandatory. I'm sure that they will make tier sets that refer to abilities that are talents. The question is just like, are they going to be ones that are are they going to only refer to the ones that are either mandatory picks or mandatory picks, right?
Mandatory
the ones that basically everybody will actually pick, right?
Yeah.
Like, the 99+% talents, or are there going to be talents that tie in directly with like the capstones at the bottom of the tree, which are supposed to be optional? I feel like ideally they shouldn't like require those to function, but I think it's a good thing if they have synergy with some of those at the bottom of the tree, that especially things that like going into the long term, I think it's good if the set bonuses make it so that different talent builds are good from patch to patch. And that's historically been something that they do.
In addition to that, like we saw a few specs coming into Sepulchre where they had like specific interactions that would proc certain talents, even if you had that not talented. And so that could be a situation where Blizzard has at least proven that they are willing to utilize that kind of thing. I do wonder what it would look like, even if it's like something that's in the middle of the tree that you would normally not take under every situation, because I feel like this almost certainly has to happen, at least for some specs, with how these tier sets are going to end up functioning. Like somebody's going to have a tier set that is modified by something either in the middle of their tree or pretty deep down in their tree. Would you be upset if you were one of those specs and you felt like you were more or less shoehorned into a specific build for a whole patch?
I mean,
I'm not even sure if I would be. It's weird.
Yeah, like I also don't think I'd be that sad about that. If it happened to my spec every tier, then I probably. But like, if some set bonuses basically hard lock you into a certain build,
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a. If you're making 38 set bonuses every patch, I feel like that's acceptable casualty.
Okay, so I guess another really broad question is like, how do we think that Creation Catalyst should work? So Creation Catalyst got a decent amount of feedback in Sepulchre. I think a primary amount of the feedback was involving like the release date on the Creation Catalyst, not even necessarily like how the charges functioned. I think that most people were pretty fair on that. Oh, also, I think the resources, the currency that was required was a bit steep, especially for alts being able to catch up on the creation catalyst. I think for me, the biggest change I would like to see for the creation catalyst going into Dragonflight is maybe a currency cost reduction, because it felt like it was like very difficult to get an alt up and running to like get tier sets on week whatever 16th patch or whatever.
Yeah, Flux was such a weird resource because like week 1 you just had infinite of it on your main, right? Like you never were close to running out on your main, and then like your alts were just starved for Flux the entire patch. It was weird. Yeah, I'm sure that they will have a new currency set up for it of some kind. I guess we still haven't got any information about what those sorts of currencies even look like or where they come from, but
I think for me the charge system was fine, right?
Yeah, the charge system, I think it was like the first 4 charges being kind of delayed was probably fine. I think instead of giving us a 5th charge, they could have just given us unlimited charges on week 5, and that would like, and it is kind of weird going to it now, and it's like, after this, you only have 43 more charges of the creation catalyst. Like, okay, dude.
So maybe after week 5, after the creation catalyst unlocks, it would be unlimited charges. That feels a bit fair. It also allows you to get your 4 set pretty quickly. In addition to that, you're not ever really worried about charges. You can catalyze like low eye level gear, which I think in my mind is like an advantage, and allows you to get that 4 set up and running a bit quicker.
Yeah. Again, I don't think the charge system was a problem or anything. I just think it would be like, rather than doing this whole like accelerating pace of charges over time, I would just unlimited after the 4th or whatever, after the 5th.
This may be a hot take. I thought that 8-week gating was fine.
I also thought it was fine. Yeah, I wouldn't mind like 6 weeks. I think any earlier than that would be bad. Would be actively bad.
It's just weird because, okay, so Blizzard is trying to balance 3 aspects of the game and make them a little bit fair. Let's just kind of lay this out, how this works. So Blizzard's trying to balance 3 aspects of the game and make them fair. So PvP wants tier sets, M+ wants tier sets, and Raid all wants tier sets. The only place that tier sets actively drop from the loot pool is from Raid. Obviously, you could get tier from the Catalyst, or the Great Vault.
And from the Great Vault, yeah.
From the Great Vault. Obviously, you could get it from the Great Vault at a higher rate than normal, but it wasn't guaranteed in any capacity, so it was very difficult to get it. So what is Blizzard supposed to do about balancing the creation catalyst, which ensures it is 100% certainty you're going to be allowed to get tier, versus this raid thing where there are raid drops and like tier comes from the raid. That is a tangible piece of loot that you're going to be getting from the raid. What is the balance here? And to me, it felt like 8 weeks was more or less fair. It allowed you to, sure, it definitely sucked for the first, I don't know, 4 weeks, I guess, whenever a decent number of full-time raiders would have their 4 set, and then those M+ers and PvPers who didn't high roll stuff out of their vault, or they weren't raiding or whatever, they didn't have their 4 set. That 4 week span kind of sucked. But I don't even know what the best solution is without actively impeding the raid.
Yeah, I do think that it's important for raid that there's good reasons, like good loot-based reasons to go into raid. We know whenever there are patches with bad incentives to raid, a lot of people feel bad about it because like they want to raid, but they kind of need to feel rewarded for their time in there. And I think that the set bonuses coming from there is a good way of doing that. I wouldn't mind there being more accessible set bonuses for high M+ and for high PvP early on as well. But yeah, the creation catalyst I think is a great way to make sure that everybody gets to play with the set bonuses, though, because that was always something that it did feel bad, like 5 months of a patch and you never got to play with your set bonus if you didn't go into the raid and you knew you were never getting it, right?
No, that was bad.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think I think the catalyst is a good thing, and I would expand the kind of philosophy forwards and let more of the kind of raid exclusive, high item level pieces and stuff be accessible to other players at the same time as the catalyst comes out.
I do wonder, though, if they changed the vault to have some more deterministic loot properties of it and allowed players to like actually target tier pieces early on in the season, if that would be a little bit better. I wonder if players would even target those tier pieces, because the catalyst is coming later. Or would you take something that's maybe a little bit more higher value, like a weapon upgrade or something like that, a trinket that you may end up using more long term?
Yeah, it's curious because like we know that they have done the dinar experiment this time around, but the dinars didn't interact with set bonuses at all because they didn't need to, because the catalyst was out this whole season. But also like the dinar got you a piece of loot of your choice on the 3rd week of season 4. Like I doubt they'll want to do that for an entirely new season. I doubt they'll want to let you get anything you want that early on. So yeah, I wonder if they're going to try something new that kind of does like a bit of both systems, right? Like what the Great Vault did and what the Dinar system did this time around. I'd be excited to see some experimentation there. I do think that even just if we got the Great Vault back and the Dinars went away, that would still be fine. I think the Dinars at least kicking in when the Catalyst does would be really good. Like Dinars were a really nice way to make it feel worth playing like alts and stuff later.
There philosophically needs to be a change on how the Dinars function, because I don't think you should be able to just like straight up buy high value pieces so early on in the patch.
Yeah, early on in the patch, I think, is the issue.
And the frequency at which you were able to buy like basically end boss loot. That was weird. But in the same vein, I don't know if it should be gated behind killing like 30 bosses worth of re-clears either, because are you really going to punish players for like extending a lockout to try to get like a progression kill? That seems like a mistake as well. Like there's definitely something that needs to change about the Dinar system for guilds that aren't on like that. The guilds are like actively progging.
That is rough. And also being on the bench is something where that had some awkward interactions there. So yeah, I do think it's something to go back to the drawing board with. But I think there was good movement on all these systems during Shadowlands. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they decide to handle it here. We do need to see those set bonuses though, because I mean, I guess are we just going to test the raid without set bonuses? That seems like raid probably testing? What's happening.
Well, we tested Sepulchre without set bonuses for all of heroic and normal testing, right? We did all of that without set bonuses, and then they gave us set bonuses for mythic testing.
Yeah, we are. So the way that the raid testing is going to work is it's heroic testing next week.
I'm pulling it up right now.
Yeah, the week after that is some heroic and some mythic, and the week after that is all mythic. So
here's the retesting dates.
I guess if we get the set bonuses in by the build on October 4th, then we'll have it for all of mythic testing. But that's still 2 beta builds away, which is not very long to get 38 set bonuses in.
You and I are both okay with the concept of like them continuing to test M+ raid and tier sets like during pre-patch time, right? Because that feels fair to me. Like it's the beta is still active basically up until launch, even a couple days after launch. Normally the beta is still live, and so like I think that them testing M+ and raid and tier sets during this time is totally fine. They don't need to be implemented. So if you're looking at this and you're like, oh my god, tier sets aren't implemented, I think that will be okay. I don't know if they're gonna have much time for iteration, so I hope that they have like home run ideas for a lot of the tier sets coming into this.
Yeah, I am worried about the both ideas end of the set bonuses and the like balance. The tuning of them is something that I'm also.
The tuning at Sepulchre was really scuffed for tier bonuses.
Yeah, I am. I will say I think there's a good chance that this is going to be a relatively unbalanced season. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it won't be a fun season. Maybe it's not something worth delaying the expansion for, but I do think that at this point, with the timeline that it looks likely of releasing this expansion in the next like 2 months, that is a very likely possibility.
I know you and I said that the expansion will be ready in time in a few videos ago. Do you want to backtrack on that? Do you think that they should have pushed it back and not set this date for themselves? Or do you think that this is something that like needed to happen for the game?
I think that when they announced, when there was no alpha yet in June and they announced a 2022 release date, I believe that the information we've gained since then has mostly been either neutral or positive on the game.
Okay.
Like so when like this is kind of, they've been doing updates on the talents fast. They've gotten most of the trees have gotten quite a lot of iteration. Do they still have a tremendous amount of work cut out for them to get this launch in time? Yeah. Are they probably going to release a season that I think will probably have some serious balance issues? Yeah. Have they scuffed Evoker with the whole short range thing and hover being super clunky and empower spells being super clunky? Also, yes.
They changed preservation today.
They did. They gave preservation an extra 5 yards.
Let me find that as well. Here we go.
I'm still extremely worried about that spec. I think that the interaction between trying to be a mid-range healer and then having empower spells and a spell as clunky as hover be the sort of things you're trying to balance seems like a really hard place to be for, at least for mythic progression. So like there's a lot that I'm worried about for this expansion, but on the whole, I will say that the pace of like iteration on the talent builds has been as fast as I think it needed to be to get the expansion out the door this year. And yeah, honestly, I think I think that, like, I think it will be ready this year, as long as your definition of ready doesn't include like super perfect tuning and balance.
Sure, I'm a bit of a more generally, we were very positive whenever we're talking about this. I think I'm taking a bit more of a pessimistic opinion here. Where it's like this feels like they shoehorn themselves into something that's like, holy shit! Like,
yeah,
it's so difficult. Like, I just think that like they did a good job. I like the move where they're focusing on talent trees and the classes at a default and less on borrowed power in systems like that. That feels like it's a big win. I think that generally classes feel just better as a whole. But at the same point, like the timeline to get all of the classes into a state where basically every community is happy is something that's very difficult. And I think that it's weird because I watch more often than not, whenever you watch like social media or whatever regarding WoW, whenever some class gets something cool, the other classes are kind of salty. But with this like beta alpha iterative cycle, whenever some class gets something cool, other classes are like, man, I want something cool. I wish I had that. And they're not like mad. They're like a longing for this, not even the same thing, but they're longing for cool stuff on their own class.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that most class communities that I know are pretty positive about how their talent tree has iterated over time, right?
They just fixed Moonkin, so I can't complain.
Moonkin was one of the last ones, and there's a couple that are still like down a little bit bad about their talent tree. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean,
H-Pally, Priests, Prot Pally, Bear Druid, seeming like the big ones. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like is it better to release this expansion in this year or next year for Blizzard? I think there's a pretty good argument that like, yeah, releasing it this year is going to be better for them. And like, yes. I do think that releasing an unfinished game is bad, but I don't think that this necessarily rises to that level of unfinished. I think it's more like we're gonna have like kind of a bumpy landing onto the expansion, but is that better than waiting 3 months for no content and then getting a slightly more polished game that probably still needs a bunch of iteration anyways?
It's a weird one. Did you tell your family that we're not coming home for Christmas this year?
Not yet. I'm still waiting for an actual release date, but I've told them it's extremely likely. Yeah.
Yeah, same. All right. I don't think there's too much to hash out on this. I'm really interested in what like the comment section feels about this. I feel like this is like a really interesting one, whether it be Creation Catalyst. Dude, we always catch flack on the Creation Catalyst week release date. Tell us why we're stupid on this Creation Catalyst thing, because
tell us how we're entitled elitist raiders and
okay, don't say that. Hold on, I want constructive feedback. Wait a second. Actually, I read the comments. So please, I like to engage with the community. I'm a man of the people.
Man of the people.
Exactly. A man of the people. All right. We'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.
Bye.